Hello everybody, welcome to my new tutorial on my tutorial series about Blender for complete beginners. This is part 5 of the series, and in our previous part, which is part 4, we have created the cloak for Hornet and then added a cloth simulation to it to create a realistic look. In this next episode, we will create the nail for Hornet, and then we will also dive deeper into the material topic and how you can create colors from it, what a material is, and different basic settings. So without further ado, let's jump in. So I will open up my Blender file, which previously got this result, and the cloth simulation is quite nice looking. We can done with this, but there's one extra step I want to do. I want some thickness to it. As if you look here, it is quite flat. So I just want some slight thickness. So when you do something to a cloth, like adding modifiers to it or like changing the settings of the cloth, it will redo the whole calculation process. So I'm just gonna move this to frame 1. Then add a Solidify modifier over here. Click Add Modifier, and you can search for it, or you can find it under Generate here. And just change the thickness. You don't want it to be too thick, or else it isn't gonna look like a cloak, a real cloak. We just want a slight of thickness, like so. Also, you can check even thickness if you want to make sure that all edges are even in thickness. I'll just check here for safety, and then now we have our cloak all done. Next, as I promised, we will create the nail for Hornet. To create the nail, first I will just move it over here a bit. Shift A, and we will create the handle by adding a Torus. And now before you move anywhere, there should be a window over here and you can pop it up. For mine, it is already popped up. So then you can change the major segments here, minor segments here. What I want is the radius. So I want it to be something like this. I will change the minor radius so it's thinner, somewhere over here, and increase the major radius like so. After this, you can change the major segments or minor segments to your need, but I will just keep it like this because there is no necessary needs for it. Let's close this. Now let's go to the front of our character, and then move over here. We will just make it slightly smaller, but we don't want it to be too small. Let's just hide this camera temporarily. We don't want it to be too small because later we can still scale it up and down to change the largeness of it, the size of it. So we can just keep it like this, so it makes everything modeling easier. And there we go, you have our handle. Next, we will create the guard. So Shift A, let's add a new mesh and click cylinder. Now open the box again and increase the vertices. I would love to increase it to something like 40. No, 45, like so. And then we can go to the Y minus Y view, which is in front of our character, and then press R, and then 90 degrees. Then we can G to move it, and just scale it down, like so. Until it's small enough like so. And then we can stretch it out. S and then X. We can make it longer, but we don't want it to be too long, like maybe around here is enough. And then we will move it over here. Maybe a bit shorter, I think. A bit shorter. Maybe even shorter, like so. And then we'll make this slightly bigger. There we go. Then we will create the needle, which by the references that I look at, it is long, the longest part in the whole needle. So Shift A, and let's create a new plane. So the reason I created a new plane here is because I wanted to create the diamond shape easier, and then we can change the depth later on. So let's go over here, move it over here. Let's go to select the plane and go to edit mode. Go to edit mode, and then we can press A to select everything. If everything is orange, then you have selected everything. And then S and then X to make it longer, a bit smaller, longer, like so. Maybe longer. Like so. And we can Control R to create a loop cut in the middle. Loop cut in the middle. There we go. Click it again to conform, because if you Control R, then it should be a combination of loop cut and also the edge slide. So if you don't want to make any changes, double click it. So we have this, and now we can select these two vertices, or you can hold Shift and select them, and then press M, merge at center. This way we can do the same thing over here. M, merge at center. And there we go. Also, I wanted to add this one over here first. So, wait a minute. Let's just remove this number of cuts back to 1. And now we can loop cut. Okay, like this. And then now we can merge it. Merge at center. Merge at center. We can move it over here. And we can make it longer. Like so. Now I will click on this middle vertex over here, and then GZ, move it up, and it's just created some depth. We can do this, and then we can fill in the face. No, there's a better way actually. Yeah, after doing this, we can go to object mode, and there should be a separate object. Add a new modifier, mirror, and click Z. Remove this X over here, and there we go. Our needle have already gotten some depth. Because we are using mirror, you can move this vertices over here, and everything should be symmetrized in the bottom. I would love it to make this longer, like so. Also merge at center over here too, to remove any unwanted, unused vertices. Let's go back here to object mode, and we have our nail. But I want to move this slightly deeper in, I think. So let me just move this slightly deeper in. G, X, and I like. Yeah, that's good enough. We don't need to move it deeper in. And then we can select all these. Let's just scale this up more. Select all these also by holding Shift in object mode and Command J to join. Or you can right click over here and press join to. So let's join. And then we can shade smooth. No, I like. Yeah, we just keep it like that. Or you can shade smooth this thing first, and then shade auto smooth this thing. But you don't need to shade smooth the needle anyway, so I'll just keep it like that. And then now we can join it again. Command J. No. Or J. Or Control J. Whatever. And then you can scale it down. Make this longer. Scale this down. Make this longer. Scale this down. Let's go over here. Bring it over here. And then we will move over here. Go back over here. And then press R and just rotate it like this. So it's like Hornet is kind of holding it in her bag. Hanging it in her bag. So we can also rotate it a bit in the X to kind of like this. And then just kind of adjusting it. So yeah, like that. Let me just turn on this rotate mode so it's easier to do. Also, I will go over here, and instead of global, I will select local. That way it's easier to manipulate and things like so. Let me just, no. Okay, there we go. All good. And there we go, we have our needle. Now we will, oh, I forget to do the cloth simulation. Yeah, like that. This one is kind of move it closer a bit. Yeah, like so. And yeah, now it's time to add materials. And let me explain what a material first is. Look at your desk or table or whatever surrounding you. Well, there are leathers, sometimes wood, sometimes metals. And you and I can all define them, most of them, and know which material is it. So a material in here, in a 3D software, in a computer, works similar to that as well. To explain more clearly, let's just go to the viewport shading mode over here. Only when you select this mode, you can actually view the color in viewport mode. When you come over here and click on this, it should have been a white material because there's no material being added. So Blender just added a default color for it. So first, let's select the cloak as an example. I want this to be red, so we can go down here into material, this checkerboard sphere over here, and click new. It should take some time depending on the computers. Let me just quit one of these. So now we can rename it to whatever you want. Cloak. And you can plus to add a new material slot or minus to remove one. But pressing this doesn't mean that it's deleted, because if you minus over here, it is removed from the material slot, which is the square over here, with this rectangle over here. If you open up this drop down, you can still see it over here. So how do you delete it? Well, I don't know how to delete it, but Blender will just automatically remove ones that isn't applied to any part. So Blender just automatically remove the unused one. Or you can use this thing called a fake user over here, but it's some more intermediate stuff, so you can continue exploring more. You can also click this to remove, but once again, it has never been removed fully. You can click over here, and this drop down lets you use one material for multiple models and objects. So it's a really convenient way. Adding a material slot lets you create multiple materials in one object, and I will show you how that's useful later on. So over here, we have our base color section, and you can select the red color, and boom, there we go. You just have a red color. Although the lighting doesn't look really that good, but finally we have something for our color, not a boring gray. And now here's what these settings go. For beginners, the three things settings you need is base color, metallic, roughness. That's all you need. But there's some more advanced stuff like this thing and the alpha and the RL, or these sections. You can also change different ones to see and experiment. So what does metallic do? Well, it just makes the object look more metallic. If you increase this up, you can see that it's started to look more shiny. It kind of absorbs the light more to create like a metallic look. But if you want to build the material like wood, these settings isn't enough. So you're gonna have to dive deeper into something called shading over here, which, I mean, you shouldn't be exploring this early, because it consists of a lot of things in here. So just learn step by step. Next is the roughness, which is basically controls how rough it is, how much light it reflects. If I remove this all the way to 0, you can see it reflects a lot, and this looks like absolute plastic. But normally plastic will only look something like this, not this. But reducing the roughness all the way down can be helpful for creating glasses. So let's change this to something decent. We don't want any too much light reflection, because sometimes we're going for a stylized look. So I just don't want to make it too basic. Next is for the feet. For the feet, we will add a new material over here and name this leg, feet, whatever. Let's call this leg. And then we can change this to black. You can also notice this hex over here. This is kind of like a code thing, basically like a code thing that you can type in to get that exact color that you wanted. But then we should have this black color. But I doesn't want this to be reflecting light that much, so I will increase the roughness to maximum. There should be no light reflecting, almost no light reflecting, and also decrease the metallic, of course. Now it's time for the nail. For the nail, it's real simple. Let's create a new material and name this something like needle. I don't remember if it's called needle or nail in the Hollow Knight Silk Song game. Let's just name this needle. I believe it's named needle. Also, this one is kind of not fully black, but gray. And since it's kind of metal, we will increase the metallic over here and reduce, let me see, which settings is good for this one. Something like this should look good. Like so. Pretty good. Now for the head. As you can see, the eye and the head, it have two different colors. The eye is a pure black, and the head is kind of slightly white or fully white. So how do we do this? Because it's, one object, right? Well, as I said before, here's when multiple material slots came into the rescue. First, create a new material, and I'm just going to name this head. And of course, for the eye, you can reuse the leg material here, but to be more clear, I'll just rename this to add a new one. Click a plus, so we have a new material in our a new material slot. Click a whole new one and rename this to eyes. And then we can change this to pure black. Also, as you can see, it doesn't automatically assign it. So first, you will select the color you wanted for the eye, which is, in our case, black here, and go to edit mode. Then we can go to face mode. And then now, this is quite tedious, but I haven't recently found anything better for this. Maybe you can do some research and type it in the comments below, so show me anything's better. So you will go over here, hold this thing, and select circle, or you can just press C as a shortcut. There we go. You can select, slow, it's not that good. And also I'm not holding shift right here. I'm not holding shift. So you can kind of you can increase the radius over here. Let's just, or you can hold shift to deselect. But I see I can't zoom in and out while I'm in here. Let's just increase the radius a bit more so it's more effective. And you can just paint in here, but make sure you're holding shift for each stroke. Okay, then you will deselect it, so we can deselect by holding command. I don't know. There we go, one final dot. Sorry, one final dot. Yeah. If I were being deselecting these, it should be I would be really tired. So after you have already selected the part that you wanted to assign the material to it, select the material you wanted and simply press assign. But as you can see, this options were only appearing in the edit mode. So now if we go back to object mode, this part over here still needs some cleanup. After doing some cleanup, our eye is nice and clean. Now let's go to our eyes. Increase the roughness up. This way we'll create that stylized hand-drawn color look. Yeah, there we go. We have our color. And thank you for watching a lot. This is the end of our tutorial part 5. And make sure you wait for part 6, where we will be doing the final steps, adding final touches, rendering, lighting, camera setup, a bunch of things that you would need to finish this project. So we're almost at the end. So goodbye. See you again. Thank you for watching a lot once again. And make sure to hit the subscribe button, notification bell, like, share, whatever you want. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.